Hey everybody, just wanted to do a quick video and go over the current state of my Land Cruiser. This is a 1991 FJ80 Land Cruiser. Pretty basic as far as Land Cruisers go. Cloth seats, it's still got the 3FE engine in it, no lockers. Not much work's been done so far. The only thing I've really done to it at this point is remove the front and rear bumpers. The rear bumper slash cross member on these FJ80s was bent from a previous collision in the rear. The front bumper was also bent a little bit in the corner, so I've taken it off completely. I did run around a little bit for a while with the corners cut off of the bumper, so it just had this intersection, but I stopped that after a while, and I've now replaced it with just a winch plate. I do plan on building a bumper in the near future. So one of the things that I have done to it is I've done a body lift. I am usually anti-body lift. However, in this case, I do plan on doing an engine swap in the future. And from the forums that I've been reading, which have mostly been Australian, the engine that I want to put in here is a bit of a tight fit. So I'm hoping that with the 1 1/4 body lift that I've done, I'll be able to fit that engine without many issues. Basically what I've used to do the body lift is just some of this high density polyurethane here. I got it on Amazon for about 30 bucks. I believe it was a 2-foot stick when I started off. I just cut it with a chop saw, re-drilled the holes, and got some longer bolts for the body. It wasn't too big of an issue, except for these front 2 body mounts. The bolt was frozen up inside of them, and I actually had to get a large 7-inch grinder with a wheel to be able to cut those apart in place and then take those off. And then finding the actual body mounts to replace what I cut out was a little difficult and expensive. I was actually able to find these on Newegg of all places, so they were fairly cheap there. I think I paid $15 or $16 a piece for them, which was much better than the $100 or so that I was seeing on various dealer parts listings. The tire that I've decided to run was these Hankook Dynapro ATMs. After lots of reviews and looking at prices and different things like that, I decided to go with these because, one, the price. I usually go with the least expensive option with the best reviews, and if I don't like it, I'll change things out in the future. I've been surprised at how many times some of the less expensive options have been sufficient for what I do, and I don't believe in wasting money on things just because people say it's the best, especially people that don't have experience with it. So these are a 315 75 R16. Now typically these Land Cruisers in the early 90s, before they went to the FJ80, these would have a 15-inch rim stock, which is what this had. It originally had a 15-inch rim with 29-inch tires on it, and probably the smallest option available. And I verified that. Most of them had 31s, but I verified that this was a 29-inch by looking at the sticker in the door panel. So the tires themselves aren't that aggressive. I've seen a lot in the parking lots at work, and they usually look like your basic over-the-road AT type tire. However, when you get up to this size, which is, you know, approximately a 35-inch, the lugs seem to open up quite a bit. So I wouldn't call this a mud tire, but it's definitely a larger void tire for what it is. You can see there, you know, nearly the depth of my fingernail. My thumb fits pretty comfortably in between the lugs without pushing too hard, which is pretty good. I balanced these with some airsoft pellets. I think I put about 9 ounces in each tire. I have no problems with any noise or vibration going down the road. I actually got this up to 70 on the interstate a couple days ago. Everything's good, smooth, and they're awfully quiet when compared to the BF Goodrich KMs and MTRs from Goodyear that I was running previously on my 4Runner.
When I first got it, well, I wouldn't say when I first got it, but when I first started working on it, I did a full axle rebuild in the front. I have not done this in the rear, primarily because I wanted to buy a different axle for the rear. But I now have an axle. I'll be rebuilding the rear axle soon, and I'll probably do a video or two about that one, or at least post some pictures online. I went with a gray and black scheme here to match the rest of the truck. I also did some drilled and slotted rotors. I hadn't really driven it much when I did the axle rebuild, but I knew a lot of people had stated that they had bad braking. As you can see there, I've got a couple of tie rod ends and things like that that I need to replace. There's still some bushings in there that aren't brand new, and the suspension is still stock at this point. And look at this horsefly. This just kind of flew in while I was recording here. This thing's got to be 1.5 inches long. That's ridiculous.
This FJ80 was originally red when I got it. It had some rust, mainly surface rust in a few areas, a couple dents, dings here and there, and I kind of thought it would be great to go with a gray and black scheme, so I painted it gray. Basically I used some Magic brand tractor enamel. The stuff's pretty tough. It's pretty cheap, cost me about maybe 50 bucks to paint it, and I've had good luck with this paint so far, or this type of paint, not this particular brand. But it's pretty easy. I just shot it with a Harbor Freight paint gun. The paint has a little bit of orange peel to it and a few little bubbles here and there in the paint, but overall I think it looks better than a bed liner. It's pretty tough, and like I said, it's pretty cost effective. Back to the paint, I still need to do the door jambs, and the reason I haven't done them yet is because I've been doing some wiring. I've had some window issues where windows kind of get stuck sometimes, so I've been rebuilding the motors and the arms inside the windows, cleaning everything out and putting it back together. But it's definitely on my list to do the door jambs gray like the rest of the truck. And while I'm in there, there's a couple bolts on the snorkel that I installed that I just can't seem to get to, so I'm going to be putting the nuts on those when I have the doors off as well. Just a matter of time before I get those cleaned up and work on them. You'll also see here I've got one of these little fuse blocks. I've got 2 of these. This actually normally sits under the center console. I have it out because I just did some radio installs and wanted to pull it out for testing. This is basically coming straight off the battery, and then I've got another wire coming straight off the battery underneath the center console with a relay, so it switched power. So I basically have 2 fuse blocks, one constant power, one switched, that are right under the center console and easy to get to. The cloth seats in here were actually in pretty good shape, except for the driver's side. The driver's side did have a large rip right in the bolstering there next to the door. I decided to get these seat covers. They're pretty cheap. I think I paid like $20 for the set for front and rear. The thing I like to do with seat covers is I like to keep them pretty cheap, at least initially, until I see how rough I am with them. These will probably hold up for a year or so. Good thing is I can always take them out and replace them pretty cheap. I can clean them up. It's no big deal if I tear them up. When I did the seat covers, I also threw in some seat heaters. Not really so much for me, but my wife really likes seat heaters. So I thought if I was going to get her in here every once in a while, I'd want to add a nice option for her. Basically, the ones I used are carbon fiber setup. I got them on Amazon. I think it was maybe 50 bucks. But they basically, they go under the seat covers. They have some double-sided 3M tape that just stick them to the seats themselves, and then I put the covers right on top of them. I've ran them at full heat. They feel pretty good, and don't seem to be causing any damage to the seats or the seat cover themselves. So that's all good. Speaking of radios, I recently wired up my CB, which I have a Midland down here, and oh, that happens to be on right now. They're not fully wired, so right now they are on constant power, so I got to make sure I'm cognizant about turning them off whenever the vehicle's off. I left this on the other day. It didn't seem to have too much of a drain on the battery, but I definitely need to pay attention to when I have those on and off. So that's my CB there, which I'll show you the antenna here in a moment for that. But it goes to 102 inch on a 4-inch spring. And I had it on another truck recently. The antenna is like dead on with tuning. I moved it to this one, so I'm going to retune it now, but I don't have a tuner with me, so I'm going to have to order one of those or borrow one from a friend. The other radio I have here is a Zuner's tri-band, which is 2 meter, 70 centimeter, and 1.25 centimeter bandwidths. Basically, you know, ham radio. I do have a ham radio license. If you want my contact information, let me know sometime. I'll get it to you. My call sign. Maybe we can reach out. I haven't really used this too much yet. The only thing I really have is a little 10-watt mag mount antenna, which is sitting over there on the floorboard right now. That was for a handheld that I had. I'm working on getting a tri-band antenna that can handle the 35-watt output that this radio has. You probably also noticed that I have an aftermarket console. This is actually a Rampage console. I think they are designed for some model of Jeep. I'm not sure. They also said it fits well in minivans. Basically what I did was I just did measurements and looked for consoles that would fit good in between the passenger seat and the e-brake handle down here. And what I end up having to do, because the Land Cruiser tunnel is angled so much, is I had to build a platform that this sits on. So basically up here in the front, it's maybe an inch thick, and as it goes back, which I don't know how well you'll be able to see this, it just provides a level surface. And I had to do some cutouts underneath for the rear heater. But basically, in the back you end up with this. And I just grabbed some outdoor carpet that matched the interior the best I could. And it looks like, because of the color of the camera, it's showing a lot brighter than it is here, but it's not quite that bright. Here's the box for that radio. My wife actually bought it for me for Christmas. Amazon. It's not anything real special. I don't know how my reports are going to be, but we'll see once I get it hooked up and get a good antenna for it, whether or not people can hear me. I'm not a huge ham radio guy. I mainly have this just for trail communications and communicating with friends around the local area. So I'm not looking to be able to hit someone 50 miles away. I just want clear reports within the nearest few miles. So this vehicle, when I bought it, I actually had this, I thought was a RAM mount, but I bought a RAM setup for a 10-inch tablet. I'm currently running that in my F250, but I thought it'd easily transfer over to this. But now that I have the RAM mount set up in my F250, I'm realizing that this is something different. This is maybe, so I'm running 1 inch in the F250. I think this is maybe 3/4 of an inch, and it doesn't have the rubber coating that RAM mounts have. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can order just a RAM mount that's kind of fits to the same area as this. This doesn't feel really too sturdy, which I don't have all the screws in my center console right now, but there's a little bit of flex. So what I might do is I might take the center console off and see if I can reinforce behind it with maybe a steel plate or something that runs the length of the console, just to make sure that this is good and sturdy for when I have a 10-inch tablet mounted up here. Speaking of electronics, my goal was to eventually get a double DIN, maybe an Android setup in here, and then I can run some, which this is a OBD1, so I'm not going to be able to run like a full torque setup, but I do plan on maybe having some, I think it's called a inclinometer, tilt meter, some basic things in there, speedometer, things like that. but that'll be in the distant future. It's not really necessary, so it's not a high priority right now. Land Cruiser originally had a hitch on it when I first got it. This is that hitch. I removed the bumper and took the hitch off. I didn't think I needed it, or when I was going to build a rear swing out tire carrier in the near future with maybe some storage for straps and things like that. Maybe some drop down tables for cooking, things like that, because this is going to be more of an overland build. I got to thinking about it and I decided what I want to do is flip the hitch upside down, since I've done a body lift and have the clearance, and I will build my bumper around that. So basically it's just going to have the same hitch, but it's going to be higher clearance, and it gives me a good and sturdy surface to start that build off of. So that's my idea there. Now this is the antenna mount that I built, and basically what I did was I came in and welded a piece of 1/8 steel into the door catch back here, and then did some gusseting and everything because this is a large antenna. And then I just tucked it in right in behind the brake light, and it goes through that door panel all the way up to the CB radio in the front. So my eventual plan for this is to build a drawer system back here that fits into this small area, and then have a couple of modular pieces that fit where the seats are whenever I have those out. So those can be removed individually, so you can run the seats or not with the drawer system still installed. You just have extra storage capacity when the seats are out. And then in the sides I plan on doing some electronic panels. I'm still debating about whether or not I want to run like a Raspberry Pi setup with a touchscreen to control everything, or if I just want to go straight switches. The price of switches has been getting ridiculous, so I may be better off going with the Raspberry Pi setup. So this is my 93 Chevy. It's been a great truck for me, but it's getting a little too rusty to trust it pulling any major distance. Worked great for me for years, had very little problems with it. The only thing I ever replaced, besides the usual wear items, brakes and things like that, is the injector pump on it, because this is a 6.5 turbo diesel, which they do have a bad reputation, but this is one of the earlier mechanical ones. I've pulled way too heavy with this thing way too many times, and it's always been great for me. And that majority of that time it was turned up, so putting out more power than it was probably built to handle. Why am I showing you a Chevy in a video about Land Cruisers? Well, the reason is the 6.5 liter turbo diesel that's in here and the 4L80E that sits behind it is what I'm going to be putting into the Land Cruiser in the near future. Now there's some other things that I want to take care of first, but the reason the truck's in the shop right now is, one, because I'm parting it out, and two, because I'm getting ready to pull the engine transmission out of here. So the engine, the transmission, the standalone transmission controller that's in the cab, because these are a standalone transmission on the mechanical 6.5 turbos, and this GM Hydro Boost braking system here, which should give me almost double the braking power over the Toyota system. I believe it's around 1400 psi, and I think this one is around 3200 psi. That's going in there as well. One of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to transfer these dual batteries out of here. I'm going to convert the Land Cruiser over to a side post for now. I've got some extended terminals that will allow me to connect my winch and everything, but these batteries should be going in there soon. I just have to make room for the second battery in the Land Cruiser. Hopefully that'll be happening really soon. And then I also have this old Tough Stuff 12,500 pound winch. It's pretty similar to the Badlands. It's just got a permanently mounted control box on it. It does have a wireless controller. it'll be going on that winch mount. I'll eventually build a bumper around it. Main thing I'm doing right now is just trying to find a steel dealer similar to what I had up north that can give me cut pieces. I did find a good steel dealer here, but from what I've heard so far, they do not cut anything, and everything is minimum 25-foot length. So I don't really want to deal with that because I need a lot of small pieces when I do this build, so that'll happen in the future. This is off my 4Runner. I'm going to get something smaller, maybe a 8,000 or 9,000 pound winch for it, but it needs a lot of work before I take it out again, and the Land Cruiser is priority because I eventually want to make it a daily driver. So I'm pretty much wrapping up the video. This is a small air tank that I'm going to be using on the onboard air. So the drawer system is going to have onboard air. I have a 2,000 watt power supply, or a power inverter that's going to go back there. I also have a pretty good size deep cycle battery I'm going to throw back there as well. But that's going to be near future as well. Have some other things I'm working on right now. I got a vehicle I'm working on trying to sell, and I just put a $950 radiator in my F250. So also a house needs a roof. I'm halfway through putting a new floor in it. So there's a lot going on right now, so it's hard for me to justify spending a lot of money on the Land Cruiser right now or a lot of time on it, but I'm trying my best. So that wraps it up. If you have any questions, let me know, and I'll try to answer any questions that I can. Also, if you have any suggestions on what might help me out along the lines of what I'm doing, I appreciate that as well. I also plan on doing some trips in the near future in this Land Cruiser. We'll just see how that goes and how much I get done before then. So take care. Thanks for watching.